So any recordings that I do will take a day or two to get up onto Blackboard because I have to download them to YouTube. So I'm working on the parallel rule here, and when I'm working on the parallel rule with a blank sheet of paper, I would line the paper up with the parallel rule and then tape the top part of it. Since I have lines on this paper, I'm going to take my triangle, which always has to rest on the parallel rule, and I'm going to line it up with the vertical lines on this paper. So if the paper was slightly crooked, I'm still straight up and down. Once I get that done, playing with this. Once I get that done, I'm going to tape the top corners. So you should be getting blue painter's tape if you don't have grafting tape. So I'm going to tape the two top corners, and then I'm going to tape the two bottom corners.
Can you ask one of them to speak so I can hear if you like it?
Oh yeah, can someone say something? We're testing out some new speakers.
Testing.
There we go, Leona, thank you.
You're good.
We're good.
I'm going to leave it like this for now, but later on I'll...
Okay, sounds good. And I'm going to leave this set up like this. So once you've got that set up, and the system will work the same for the T-square, then you put your blank piece of paper on top. So you're not writing on that grid is underneath. Put your blank piece of paper on top, tape that one down, and then I'm just going to go through the whole alphabet one time so that you guys can watch it if you need to. I did all the straight up and down letters first. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to go through the alphabet in the correct order. I like using a 7mm mechanical pencil because it is gives me a nice fat line, and I want my lettering to be black and thicker than I would with drawing. So the first I'm going to do the A. Oops. Of course, this isn't going to work. If you have problems, you can always use a 2H pencil. So I'm going to do the A, and I'm always doing top to bottom. So I'm going top to bottom, top to bottom. And unfortunately, you get a little covered up when I'm doing this. Let me zoom in. So I'll do that again. So I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to go to the bottom, and I'm filling up that whole space, that whole parallelogram, and then I'm going to go across. The B has a straight edge, so I'm going to use my triangle. I'm going to line it up with the left-hand edge and draw the vertical line, and then I'm going to do the top, and this is parallel to that parallelogram, and then I'm going to do the bottom. So that's my B. My C, I'm not going to start in the corner. I'm going to start just a little bit over, and it's almost like a fish hook. My D, I do the straight line up and down. I'm going to start a little bit below the top of the line, and I'm going to do, I call it like half a heart. So I've got my D like that. My E, I've got the straight edge. And my triangle's always resting on the parallel rule, and I just move it back and forth as I don't need it. So I'm moving it off to the side. Then the top line follows that parallelogram. I'll go about a third of the way down and go 2/3 of the way across for that part. And then the bottom is all the way across. So each letter fills up the whole parallelogram. So there's my F. The G is a C with a straight line in it. H, I draw the first two verticals, slide my triangle back, and then about a third of the way up, and you notice all my horizontals are tilted up and to the right. The I is the only one that doesn't fill the whole area. Don't do an I with a top and bottom on it. J, I'm going to go not quite to the bottom, and then I'm going to come and do my loop. K, do my straight edge, then I come down with a straight line, and then I curve. L, straight line, and then I'm angling up and to the right following that parallelogram. M, I draw both verticals, slide my parallel back, and then I'm picking a point about 1/3 of the way down, and I'm going from top to bottom and top to bottom. N, I'm not going to go to the bottom corner, I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way up. So I've got, that's my N. O is the weirdest one for most people with architectural lettering. So think of like a pill turned sideways, and I'm going to go counterclockwise. I'm going to do the O, and I'm not going to connect the two. My P, I'll do the straight edge. And like the B, I'm going to start a little bit below the bottom. I'm going to go fill all the way across, and then this line right here is parallel to the parallelogram. Q is the O, counterclockwise with a line in it. R is the P with a leg on it. S is another one that's really different. We're going to go from the upper hand corner to about 1/3 of the way down, and we're going to do a straight line. And then I'm going to curve it. The T, straight line, and then my horizontal is up and to the right. U, the first line's not going to go all the way to the bottom. The second line will go all the way to the bottom, and then I connect it. V, top to bottom, and never double strike your letters because you'll never match it up again. W, my two verticals, I'm going to start about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom, and I'm going to go top to bottom, top to bottom. X is just like you learned in school. Y, but I start about 1/3 of the way down, and then I go top to bottom, top to bottom. And then Z is just like you learned in kindergarten. I know it may seem funny why I'm telling you go top to bottom or go counterclockwise, but it does affect how your letters end up looking. So on this form, you would have filled out the alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Wherever Z stopped, you'd start the next A, and you get it in 6 times. So Jeff's example is on Blackboard under week 1. So my numbers, the 1 is just like the I, the 2 is like that. So it's a lot like the D. The 3.
Francis, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I cannot see your numbers.
Oh, thank you. I didn't move my camera.
What do you mean by do not double strike?
Don't draw over the line twice. So if I did, I wouldn't want to come back here on my Y and draw on it again because I wouldn't be even. So if it's not nice and black, don't do it twice. You'd have to erase the whole letter. But on this sample that we're doing, you're not erasing anything. If you don't like your letter, just go on to the next one. It's a practice. The big thing is if you don't use a straight edge, I can tell, and I won't give you any credit for it. So the 4 is a straight line down, and then I'm going to come to about 1/3 from the bottom. You know, I keep using 1/3, 1/3, 2/3, and then straight across. My 5, I'll do the straight edge, go across, and then do my loop. 6 is like a G or a C, but with a loop. So you want to make sure that your G, which you can't see on my thing right now, is straight and the 6 is curved. 7 is just straight across. And when I say straight across, I mean up and to the right and then down to the back corner. 8 is another one that's a weird one. And so I always tell people, think of snowmen. So we're stacking 2 ellipses on top of each other, and I'm going counterclockwise, and I'm doing the top one, and then I'm doing the bottom one. 9 is a lot like the P, the reverse of the P, but it's more like, think more like a balloon on the stick. And then the 0 is the same as the O. Does that make sense? So that's how you do the alphabet. And you can see under here, I've got my grid that I put this on top of. If you're in the studio, and if you have problems with the internet or want to use the parallel rule, the studio's open for every class. I have 3 people who come in here and take the class here because it's easier for them to do that. The next thing I want to do is show you how to do a title block. So this you're not going to do on that clear print. If you didn't get in to pick up clear print paper, just come in when I'm here. My hours are posted on the syllabus on Blackboard, and you can pick up clear print. If you didn't get any of the equipment that I had, you can come and pick that up also. I now have I don't have the Ames lettering guide yet, but I now have the lead holders. So this is a lead holder, and I'm going to zoom out. So this is a lead holder, and you push on the end of it, and the lead comes out. You notice how the end opens up. There's some that the end pulls out slightly. So this is what we use to draw with. We hold it down here where there's a grip edge on it. And then we have a lead pointer, which you guys are all going to have to purchase. And this is the lead pointer. And all you're doing is you're putting the lead in here. So I pull it out about 3/4 of an inch, and I put it in here, and I turn and I sharpen. And can you hear that grinding?
Yeah.
So that means that I'm sharpening it, and when the grinding gets more smooth, you take it out, I blow on the lead, and then I've got this white cotton in here. If I put my lead in there, it takes the extra graphite off. Then there's 2 holes on either side, and I can put my pencil in there and reduce the depth without having to touch it. You can also do it with your finger, push it back, but then you get graphite on your finger. The other thing is, when I get this done, watch what's going to happen if I draw a line with this. I have this nice sharp lead, and if I draw a line, and listen carefully, did you hear that snap? And you see there's a gap there? So can you see my gap and the graphite? So that's because it's too sharp. So what I do is I sharpen it, I clean it off, and then I come and I just tap the edge a little bit, just to give it a little bit of dullness. So what we're going to do now, this is today's assignment, is to learn how to draw a title block. So a title block normally in architecture would have Normally in architecture, a title block would have all the way around the perimeter, would have a line. We're just going to do a title block at the bottom part. And I will put an example of it up on Blackboard with all the dimensions, but you're going to be 1 inch from the bottom. And right now I'm just doing a guideline. So if you read the stuff that I gave you, does anybody know what lead we use for guidelines? That's for lettering. Anybody check that out? So guidelines is a 4H lead. You have 3 leads that you're buying, 4H, 2H, and HB. So you probably can't see my guideline, right? Let's see if I can get in closer. Can you see that very light line right here?
Very light.
That's what you want. It should be like a ghost line. And it's only dark enough for you to be able to see. You can sort of see it here on mine. It's only dark enough for you to see to do your drawing. You don't want it real dark, and you never erase your guidelines unless they're causing you a problem or they were drawn wrong. So they become very architectural. Sometimes in the print you'll see a ghost line behind it. That's totally fine. because if we went to erase them all, we'd make a mess of our drawings. So then I'm going to come and I'm going to measure. And I like putting my scale on top of the line. And my paper is 8.5 inches. I want to be 1.5 inch, I'm sorry, a half inch in from each edge. So I make 2 points. And I made one at each end. This is my first time trying this, drawing this camera. So can you see my little point right here? So I made that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the other end, and I'm going to draw back and forth. I want this to be a heavy line, so I'm going to draw back and forth. So I'm going to start before the point at this end, and when I hold the pencil, I'm holding it like this, and I'm rotating it back and forth. Some of you who were in here doing lettering with me last week, I said hold your pencil like this between your forefinger and your thumb, because we're going to rotate it back and forth like that between our fingers as we go across. So any idea why we do that?
To sharpen it as we're using it?
Say that again?
To keep it like a consistent shape while we're using it?
Yep, because if I don't do that, I'm going to wear it uneven at the edge, and then I'm going to get a line that's going to go thin, thick, thin, thick, thin, thick. So I'm going to start over here. I'm going to go up to that line, back to my other point, and I'm going to go back and forth with an HB lead about 4 times. So that would be my medium line. I want a heavy line here, so I'm going to overlap 2 medium lines. So I'm just going to do another line that slightly overlaps this one and go back and forth. And line weights are really important in drawings, whether you're doing, so see how nice and thick that line is? That's what we're looking for. Next, I'm going to show you how to use the Ames lettering guide. So I put up, I think one of the videos was on the Ames lettering guide, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the Ames lettering guide. These lines are all 1/8 of an inch apart. And what I do is I line up the 10 with the bottom. So I've got these straight lines up and down, and then I shift it back to the 8. And remember on the video, he talked about each of these numbers makes those lines when you line it up with that, was it 1/32 of an inch apart? So if I have 8/32 of an inch, is that right? Once I end up with these at 1/8 inch, all the way down here. 64th, it must be a 64th. So if I go to 8, I'm lined up. All these are at 1/8 of an inch, which is the same as this over here on the side, this one on the side. But I don't like using that one because it tips when I use it. So what I do, there's lots of things you can do with this tool, but we're only going to use it for the guidelines. So once I get it in the right place, I tape it. And then I don't have to worry about it ever being not correct. And the way this tool is used is a little different than they showed on the video. I was looking through lots of videos. So I have all these circles, and the ones that are evenly spaced are my 1/8 inch apart. And what I want to do is line up the top line with that title block I just created. And see, my tape is getting in the way, so I'm going to move my tape up here. So I'm going to line the top one up here, and then I'm going to put my pencil in here, and I'm using a 4H lead because I want these to be guidelines. And I'm going to make them a little darker than you should. And I'll zoom in a minute. And then when I get to the end, I'm only holding the parallel rule. You'll notice I'm not touching the Ames lettering guide. Then I go down to the next circle and I just glide it across. Then I go down to the next one. This is hard to do where you can see everything that I can see. And I glide it across. I go to the next one and I do that all the way down. And if any of this doesn't make sense, now's the time to ask. So I've got all these lines in here that are all, each line is 1/8 of an inch apart. So that gives me my lettering that I want. what we're going to do on the title block is we're just going to put our name in the center, the date on the, or the assignment on the right, and the date on the left. So you're going to want to do your all your lettering with a triangle. The other thing you can do is you can use the Ames lettering guide as your straight edge, because it's got this straight edge here, and I like doing that because it's handy and it's already right here. So I want your name to be a 1/4 inch high. So you're going to skip a space and you're going to try to center it. You'll get better at centering it as you go. And you're going to write your name. So I've got my name there. Now I want to skip a line. When you type on the typewriter or on the computer, nobody probably knows what a typewriter is anymore. When you type on the computer automatically spaces the lines for you. It doesn't smash the words up against each other. There's always a space between. So you never want to write right below what you just wrote. So I've got this 1/8 inch gap and I'm going to skip 1/8 of an inch. And over here, I'm going to write the date. So today is 9/2-20. And then over here, I'm going to write the assignment. This assignment is called title block. I always get somebody who calls every assignment title block. This is the only one that's called title block, and this is our sample. And what I've decided to do, I think I emailed it to you, but you're going to take a PDF of all the drawings and you're going to submit them. And I will make comments on them of what you need to do to improve them. At midterm, the midterm is going to be, you're going to have to come into the studio to take the midterm, and you will be, you'll turn in your book at that time. And then I'll grade them and have them available for you. So you need to be keeping a nicely organized book with all of the handouts. So you should be printing out the handouts that I have here. If you need to print, you can always come here and print from the studio. So any questions about that so far?
So I think I just have one, I'm sorry. The line,
no worries.
The spacing below our name, it will be 1/8 of an inch.
Yep. So your name, this part right here, is 1/4 inch.
And then the space below that is an 8. Okay.
Yeah, this is an 1/8 inch, at least an 1/8 of an inch. It could be more. So I came down 1/4 inch from the title block, come down at least an 1/8 of an inch from the title block. You just don't want them all lining up with each other.
Okay.
And then this gap is 1/2 inch. Right? Okay. So that's part one. So that's what your title block for all of your assignments will look like. It'll have your name, the date, and I call them DR, drafting. So DR2, DR3, DR4. Title block should only be on this one. So if you, and on a lot of assignments, I'll tell you to, on a new piece of clear print. Clear print is the drafting vellum. If on anytime we do lettering, and for this assignment, we're just doing it on regular typing paper, Xerox paper. All right, so now I'm going to go to the top. I got to move my camera. I'm locked in here with the, I got to get them to give me a longer cord. Okay. I think I'm going to move my paper down so you can see it better. Okay, so now I've got my paper. Now what I want to do is you're going to draw 4 lines, and you're going to write under each of them what the line is. So I want those to start 1 inch from the edge and be 4 inches long. So I'm going to measure over 1 inch, and then I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to draw a line. So I've got little tick marks there that you probably can't see. I'll make my guidelines darker than I would in reality. So So then I'm going to draw a line down there. And I'm going to draw another line down. So I'm going to draw my lines between these two lines. What I want to do next is measure. I'm going to have a guideline, a lightweight line, a medium weight line, and a heavyweight line. So first I'm going to mark out 1, 2, 3, 4. And I mark them all at the same time. I'm more likely to be accurate than if I marked 1 inch and then came back. Plus it's quicker. So I just made tick marks for all 4 of the lines. So my first one is my guideline. And I'm losing there we go. So my first one is my guideline. So guidelines, do you see how I didn't even care that I started or stopped at the right point? So guidelines are really light and they don't have to start and stop at any point. So you can see my guideline, how light that is. It should really be gray. And if you use your 4H lead and it's nicely sharpened, you'll hardly ever sharpen your 4H lead. It will always stay pretty good. Now I want to do the next line as a lightweight line. The lightweight line is done with a 2H lead, and sharpening is really important. Usually when people are here, I'm walking around and I'm grabbing them and I'm going, your pencil's dull. You can't have a nice line if your pencil's dull. So you got to make sure you sharpen a lot. So I'm going to do a lightweight line. A lightweight line is done with a 2H lead and it's going back and forth twice. So I've got a lightweight line in there. So can you see the difference? One you can barely see, and one is nice and black, but very thin. So I don't like the way they call these names. They've always been called this way, but they're called lightweight, medium weight, and heavyweight. They all are black lines except the guidelines. It's just a matter of thickness. So a lightweight line is the very thinnest, medium weight line is thicker, and the heavyweight line is thickest. If we were doing hand drafting like they did 20, 30 years ago, you would have more than 3 line weights. But for our purposes, we're doing 3 line weights. If you're taking AutoCAD, when you draw it, you just draw in colors. And then when you print, you tell the computer what the line weight is of each color. Jalon, do you have a question? Your hand's up.
That was from earlier.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
And did I answer your question?
It was attendance, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll double check attendance after I'm done with this part. So now I've got my 2 markings. Next one is my medium weight line, which I'm going to use the HB lead for, and I'm going to go back and forth about 4 times. And I'm pressing pretty hard. So I'm starting my line a little bit over from the edge, and I'm going to the edge, then to this edge, and then back again and back. And I'm going to stop in a little bit. And the whole time I'm doing that, I'm rotating my pencil like this. Make sense? It takes practice. And this assignment, I just want you to just get practice on. So I don't know if you can see how I'm rotating my pencil as I go through. And then I blow on it, and I use my brush to brush away any of the graphite. So I think you can see pretty clearly a very gray line, a very thin black line, and a thicker black line. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now I want to do the heavyweight line. And normally this line on the side here that I made darker would be the same as this one. It would be really light gray. I wouldn't want it this dark. So now I'm going to do my heavyweight line. Does anybody remember how I said you do the heavyweight line?
Like what? How many strokes?
Well, I'm going to do a medium weight line with the HB lead, and I'm going to overlap 2 medium weight lines. So each medium weight line had about 4 passes. You can always make a line thicker. You can't make it thinner. So now when you pull away, can you see 3 distinct line weights and 1 ghost line? You should be able to. 1, 2, 3. And I'll take a scan of this and put it up on Blackboard too. Next, the last part of this assignment is I want you to write underneath it. So I'm going to take my Ames lettering guide, and I'm going to use those evenly spaced circles that are 1/8 of an inch apart, because I've got this set on 8 down here. And I'm going to line up the top circle with that top line, and I'm going to draw 2 lines underneath. And I want these to be very light. Always the lettering lines are really light. And I'm going to go ahead and draw all my, well, most of my guidelines in. I'll move the camera down in a minute. So I've got my guidelines in there. And now what I want you to do is to write. So in school, when they talk to you about something, you sort of remember it. If you have to do it, you remember it more. And if you have to explain it to somebody, you remember even more, right? Sort of like teach a man to fish. So what you're going to do is you're going to write what line type we used here. So we're going to call this a guideline. And don't worry if your spacing is not good, it will get better. Assignments like this, you get a perfect score if you do it and you use a straight edge. Guideline. And then what's the lead we used for the guideline?
4H.
Exactly, 4H lead. And I'll post the studio, I'll email you guys the studio hours. The studio is open on the Saturdays and Monday through Thursday nights too, if you want to come in here and work. It's quite big, and the students who are here are spaced way far apart. You do have to wear a mask. I'm not wearing one right now because it's too hard for me to talk. But okay, so this is a lightweight line. So I'm going to abbreviate light. Lightweight line. And that is a 2H lead. And then my medium weight line. And notice I skipped 1/8 of an inch. I don't want to be writing on that line. Once you get your lettering down, you'll get lots of accolades when you go to fill out forms. And anybody remember what the medium weight line lead is?
2H?
HB.
Oh,
HB, yeah. Well, you'll remember, and then this goes in your book. So your book, you should be printing out the assignments that I give, examples, and keep that all in your book. And I'm going to move down to my last one. I'm really excited I got this to work. Or I had help this morning. My last one is my heavyweight line. And what's the lead for that one? It's 2 medium weight lines, so it's the same lead. Okay, so that's your assignment that you will complete. Oops, sorry, I make you guys seasick. So it'll look like that. And can you, even from here, you should be able to see my line weights. It's pretty distinct. But my lettering is not always nice and fat and black. And that's where, I mean, I used a pencil here. I would normally use my mechanical pencil, but of course my lead ran out when I came to do it. So I had to double check that stuff before I come here. So any questions about that? This is today's assignment. This is a 1 inch. This is a 1 inch gap. The line is 4 inches long. And then it's 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. And I will just scan this drawing that I just did and you'll see it. But you're not going to write this stuff in, okay? All right, so that's the assignment. I'm not expecting these assignments until the Monday after Labor Day, so a week, 2 weeks from today. We will do another assignment on Wednesday. Next Monday is Labor Day, so we won't be here. And then next Wednesday is our walking tour. Hopefully the weather will be good. So today's assignment, if you don't have the parallel rule, again, you're using the T-square. So those people who are in here are going to work on the parallel rule. Let's see, it is 1:15. So I have a presentation on Frank Lloyd Wright, which actually is quite long. And then I also have a quiz. So I'm going to give you, the quiz is on Blackboard. I'm going to open it up now. So let me see if you can see my screen. It wasn't sharing the screen before. And it's not. So on Blackboard, under course materials, week 2, you're going to see a drafting quiz. Let me edit something here. You have 10 minutes to do it. And it's based on the video we saw last week, last Wednesday. And on those videos I asked you to watch. So I'm going to just change this to 10 minutes. So it's timed. So if you didn't watch the videos, you're probably not going to be able to answer most of the questions, unless you listened very carefully today. And I'm going to open it up. So it's open. It'll take you 10 minutes. So and then I'll give you a 10-minute break. So let's come back at 1:35, okay? So if you go on, it didn't open. Okay, now it's open. It's under week 2. It's called drafting quiz. So go ahead and take that, and then it'll take you 10 minutes, or 10 minutes is how much time you have, and then you have a 10-minute break. So I will meet you back here at 1:35. Any questions before we go? Okay, I'm gonna